Well, hello. Thank you for picking up on this YouTube presentation. My name's Steve Bishop, and I've been working on some material which has emerged as a little book entitled Something More, Miracles in the Bible and How They Impact Us. And all I want to do over these few moments is to read to you a slightly amended version of the introduction to give you a flavour of this book, which is available on Amazon, both as a paperback and as an ebook. But let's get started, and we begin with a verse from Psalm 77. You are the God who performs miracles. More red tape. This was the unspoken reaction of Herbert White to his visitor's comment. The latter was a local doctor who, like Herbert, was a committed Christian. Herbert had shown him around the house that he, helped by his wife and other supporters, had opened as an orphanage. At the dawn of the last century, such an undertaking was a huge task. There was no government or local authority provision or resourcing for the care of children who had lost their parents either through death or desertion. Mortality rates were high in an era before the National Health Service was formed, and only limited medical care was available for the working classes. But Herbert White, conscious of the need of many such children in that area on the London and Essex border, sensed that God had called him to provide a home for those now on their own. Herbert, in addition, believed that this meant resigning from his job in a bank in order to give his whole time and energy to this task. His manager thought him mad to take such a step. And there was a further belief that he held. From the outset, he had been sure that God wanted him to trust him totally for all the essentials, everything, from premises to staff, food, clothing and utensils. So, without any form of advertising, promotion or canvassing, the needs of this new home had been met by God's provision. But that was until now. The doctor's comments suddenly brought to Herbert's awareness a further need that had to be addressed. He had explained that his home in South Woodford, now called Mill Grove, should have a medical officer. This would ensure the ongoing provision of healthcare and medical oversight of the large number of children being cared for, over 60 at that time, as well as for the staff and Herbert's own family. Herbert's spirits dropped as he heard this. Finding a medical practitioner willing to take such responsibility and the cost of their services would be another huge aspect of running the home. However, Dr. Flegg, the name of this local doctor, having been shown around the home and coming back to speak to Herbert about this further need, had not quite finished. Without Herbert saying anything, the doctor added that not only would he offer his own services as the home's medical officer, but that he would do so free of charge. In addition, he would be available 24/7 and medication would be provided at no cost. God's miraculous provision of finance for the home, coming through the spontaneous contributions of local and other Christians, now extended to something more. Because following Dr. Flegg's conviction that this role was something that God had called him to undertake, he subsequently served in this way for 33 years. He was thereby responsible for the well-being of over 600 children during that period, dealing with a wide range of ailments. Yet he told Herbert that he was the one who benefited most from this responsibility. This account constitutes a snapshot of God's work and intervention beyond our own conception or resourcing. It reflects his care and undertaking as our Heavenly Father. The provision by God in situations where we have neither the means nor the ingenuity to bring any kind of resolution by ourselves, nor from others, points us firmly to his miraculous ways of working. This term miraculous is one with which some may feel uncomfortable. There have been many miracles that prove to be false or exaggerated. Yet the Bible clearly records God's work in such ways. These frequently lack the blaze of publicity or hype that can be associated with such intervention. Most of them are low-key and almost unobtrusive, but they show God's compassion for people who realised their own powerlessness and their desperate need for him to act. Asaph, who wrote some of the Psalms, clearly recorded such need and God's response in Psalm 77. He raised serious questions similar to those we ask when confronted with crisis. Where is God? What is he doing? Why doesn't he intervene? Although his circumstances were very different to ours, his desperate plight and lack of control over situations that were engulfing him were factors with which we can identify. His reaction was to turn to God. When I was in distress, I sought the Lord at night. I stretched out untiring hands and would not be comforted. Asaph recognised that he needed God's intervention but could not see any response to his prayer, hence those desperate questions. Will the Lord reject forever? Will he never show his favour again? Has his unfailing love vanished forever? Has his promise failed for all time? Has God forgotten to be merciful? Has he in anger withheld his compassion? But as the psalmist stood with a sense of powerlessness, he remembered what God had done in the past. This was in respect of his powerful intervention in releasing the oppressed Israelites from Egyptian slavery and making a way for them through the parted Red Sea. He prefaced this recollection, I will remember the deeds of the Lord. Yes, I will remember your miracles of long ago. I will consider all your works, your mighty deeds. He then made a clear and unequivocal statement. You are the God who performs miracles. The focus of these miracles was also stated. You display your power among the peoples. This was the destination at which Asaph realised he needed to aim as the answer to his anguished questions. The events of the Exodus many centuries earlier pointed towards it, God's powerful intervention. But such a statement does not sit well in our own time. Consensus, popular opinion, social media postings and conversations are seen as setting the direction of our attitudes, especially and expectations and belief systems. A conviction that God works by way of mighty deeds, who performs miracles, is contested and denied by many in our contemporary culture. So it's not surprising that many Christians are anaesthetised, apathetic, or ambivalent with regard to the possibility that God is still able and wants to perform miracles in our lives. The battering, bruising, bewilderment and brokenness of life has also left their mark, particularly arising from the pandemic. These are persuasive reasons why God's deeds, miracles, works need to be underlined for us in this present day, together with the ways in which we can make space to respond to what he is able to do. That is the thrust of this book, reflecting on God's miraculous intervention and his power through Elisha the prophet, recorded in the Old Testament, setting the scene for miracles subsequently performed by Jesus. John especially labels Jesus' miracles in his Gospels as miraculous signs, and these, and a selection from Mark, are used as the focus of the second part of this book. These will help us to understand the ways by which God can still intervene in this age, impacting our lives. However, there is a particular feature in all these biblical accounts which needs to be noted, drawn out in these reflections. Each miracle brings to light some aspect of how God intervened by which we can learn to make space for him to work. We cannot force or manipulate God to act in any particular way, but we can be in a better position to experience his intervention. Listening to what he is saying, being obedient and trusting him are responses that are especially relevant, but there are other responses we need to be aware of and to act upon, highlighted in these chapters. While the details of these miracles involved events many centuries ago, they are still relevant, highlighting God's power and compassion. Everyone featured in these interventions needed and somehow looked for something more. To you. So I hope this has helped you and perhaps whetted your appetite. I hope to produce a couple more videos picking up specific incidents involving God's miraculous power. But for the time being, thanks and God bless.